Temperature or? I'm flattered.
I know you were. Right?
All right. I gotta turn my neck. Good.
Laura, you pulled it.
Turn my trigger back. What?
6.
What am I doing?
Nothing. I said, let's move on to she had to over here.
Yeah, this is better.
No.
It's better than
Let's see
that.
how long we put the place is next to her.
No, but if I sat there, then I
Wouldn't
would.
be able to see anybody.
Is it casting?
Okay.
Just let everybody know I had fusion done on my neck, so I can.
Are you on? Is it on?
Doing this. I don't know. Hi, everybody.
Hey, can I do a quick audio check? Can you all hear me?
I'm gonna call the get together to order. And now this is more casual than a meeting, even though we do all the meeting kind of stuff. And I don't have anybody who wants to comment. But before we go to the agenda, does anybody want to say anything? Maybe get started about anything we're talking about?
Well, I've already submitted the packet.
Oh, real fast. All right, we've got that on the agenda. So motion to adopt our agenda for this evening.
I'll say.
Everybody want to do that? Yeah.
So moved.
All right, we've got some action items. Now, this is something we talked about at a special meeting a couple of weeks ago, where we discussed renewing the management company contract with some renegotiation. And a lot of interesting ideas were discussed. And at the end of the day, we thought it might not be a bad idea to, instead of just keeping it for ourselves, share it with the community and set up a task force to look at the particulars, what might make sense in terms of a renegotiation of the contract with brand managers, and how we set up benchmarks and what those benchmarks might be to measure their future from CROA. So what we decided to do is set up a task force. We asked community members to volunteer for that task force. We have a list of a lot of people who volunteered to be on that, and the board voted online for 7 people. And so we're going to right now, we're going to start by motion to adopt the management contract task force resolution. Anybody do that? Second. All those in favor? Well, first let's read it. Let's do it. Because this will kind of set up, this will set up the task force expectations and objectives. So it says.
I have a question too.
Bylaws, Article 5, authorize the board, that's us, to appoint committees as deemed appropriate and to manage affairs of the association. I'm going to paraphrase some because it's got a lot of whereases. The board desires to establish a management contract task force to develop structured, definable, and discernible objectives, and that this task force is bound by CROA's administrative resolution for task force charter for 2023, and that the following specifications shall apply upon adoption and shall remain effective until the board modifies the objectives of the task force or as modified by law. Legal stuff you have to go in there. A, the universal task force goals. Just to know what the scope of work is. This is not a task, this is not a group that is tasked with doing anything outside of these boundaries. Adhere to the committee's scope of responsibility as defined by the board of directors, us. Maintain open lines of communication with the board of directors. Make recommendations to the board of directors in writing prior to implementation unless otherwise stated in the goals and objectives. The scope of work is to assist the board in developing recommendations on performance metrics to be evaluated. Highlight areas of concern with the existing agreement we have with brand managers. Research similar industry agreements, review documents as outlined in Section C resources, participate in an orientation with the board of directors to establish common historical baseline of knowledge for all group members, exercise extreme discretion and confidentiality as it's an contract negotiation, I added those words, with all topics related to the scope of this work. Deliverables to include a specific number of clear and concise objectives as determined by the board. A method of written evaluation for each objective with either a cumulative score, average score, or pass-fail system. Updated contract term language as appropriate and necessary given supporting evidence and documentation. Timeline for this project, this is a task force, finite term, that term is 8 weeks, 2 months. Your resources would be the management company RFP from 2021, which is a request for proposals from other management companies. The existing management contract that was entered into in the fall of 2021. The community performance survey that was sent out in 2023, a year ago. The board of directors evaluation that was done in the fall of 2023, and then the newer board of directors evaluation that was done in the spring of 2024. And this task force basically is going to consist of 7 board members, and it will not have a chair. Now, any other discussion? All those in favor of the resolution? Oh, Resident Manda.
Discussion.
Yes, sir.
I have discussion.
Oh, wait, let's get to Charles. Sorry, Charles, I can't see the darn thing, so. Go ahead. Charles?
You're okay, and I'm okay. So I want to make sure I'm understanding this. So as I heard this and as I read this, the recommendations on the evaluations is going to be driven through this task force. So in other words, this is not going to be the board making recommendations or developing evaluation criteria. This is all going to come through recommendations from the task force. Because I wasn't at the meeting that was closed to Grand Manners, and I've heard kind of conflicting reports that came out of that. But I want to make sure we're all on the same page, that this board is not going to influence what the task force is doing, and they are their own autonomous organization. They're going to be making the recommendations to us.
Not decisions.
Not decisions, but the evaluation criteria.
Right. And recommend and not decide. The board can change, modify, remove, do anything we choose to do after they make their recommendations.
Get that in the resolution?
It's in there. Basically, it says it's determined by the board of directors. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, my concern is that this committee runs basically on their own without board influence, without the board telling them basically how to design this, and that they kind of run it based on the documentation that they. Okay, great.
But they have a meeting with us to discuss the history.
But
Yep.
when our conversation was, the board is always to be there when they meet.
Board members, yes,
Full board,
if we can.
right, if possible.
Yes.
So it needs to be noted because there'll always be a quorum when they meet. So it needs to be noted.
Right.
Gary?
Oh, now Gary. Sorry,
Let's
Gary.
go 1471 Resolute Street. Charles, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I have a similar concern with Charles. If you're asking the majority versus all 7 members of the board to be at these meetings, it's essentially a board meeting, and you will have undue influence on the results of the task force. I don't recommend that. I recommend liaisons, but not a majority of the board.
It's not what we discussed.
Can I respond to reply? The meetings won't be virtual or recorded. So that was the thought by not having just one liaison, but allowing for all the board
So that
members
the
to
boards can.
be present and understand.
I would like to explain to you this thing.
I think where Gary is going is,
Hold on a second.
We had meetings of the task force for the RFP. It was not recorded, there were no minutes because it was confidential information to create this RFP before it was given out to everyone. There were liaisons there, but they were non-voting liaisons, and the deliverables was from the task force to the board. So by having the board participate, the essentially deliverables don't exist. It's the board having its own deliverables. I don't recommend having the full board or even the majority there during these meetings, because you will have undue influence on the board's discussion, task force discussions. It's not unusual, that's the way task force works.
Okay, let's discuss. See it?
So during the celebration board advisory thing, the board members were always there, and we were told to sit there and not say
And
anything
listen.
and listen. That's what we did before we kind of sort of tried. That's what we did, and when we had this meeting, we all agreed as a board, Charles was the only one that was
He wasn't there,
present,
that's right.
that the board would all be engaged in this process.
That's a
That's
good.
the only reason why.
And again, it's not to exert, and I get your point, but we're also accustomed to a couple of previous boards where the boards were, a little more forceful than I believe this board to be, and we want to listen, not guide. We want to get, that's why we decided on this task force, is because we wanted guidance. We want to hear what the community has to say. We will make the final determination, whether we have influence on the task force or not. That, and without being involved as a board, coming to that determination, we won't know the reasoning as well as we would if we're present in the room, is what, in my opinion. And I'm the one who's not going to be present in the room. I hate to say it, I'm going to be gone for those 2 months. So I'm going to have to rely on information from my fellow board members, which I hate to do. But I think it's important that we hear, we don't get just the written report. That's mainly for the community, that we hear we sit through the process and understand why those various recommendations are being reviewed. That's my opinion. Andrew?
Thanks, I got from me, I think it's appropriate that we quiet for those meetings and even though we are present.
And I don't think that has to be stated in the resolution. I think we as a board can say, that's what we plan to do, because that's what we said at the end of the meeting.
As long as we make that.
Charles?
so if I was at that meeting, I probably would have been the one that still would believe that our liaison would be the best way to kind of position this. With that said, I mean, I don't want to be an obstructionist. I think the resolution is overall in a good place. What I would say is, I think all 7 of us need to be mindful about our interactions during these meetings, the interactions away from the meetings, and again, make sure that we're in lockstep in our philosophy that this committee, this task force, this advisory group, whatever you want to call them, are going to operate independent of the board. I've seen a lot of liaisons, and I've done it myself, frankly, through covenants and some of the other groups that I'm a liaison with, where we liaise a bit more heavily than we should. And I think Eric has brought this up in the past. And I just want to make sure that we don't become a de facto member of this task force or advisory group. That's all I'll say. And I'm going to vote in favor of this because I think it's important, and I think we overall have a pretty good foundation in place.
They were liaisons.
No, I'm saying, I'm saying that we stated publicly that our role will be as observer. We will have to notice it as a meeting because of the quorum, but that our role will be as liaison. But it should be a public meeting anyway.
I'm going to join this HOA meeting. Here we go.
And so then are we good that motions are about the management?
Yes, we are.
Resolution?
Yeah, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now on to the motion to appoint the management contract task force members, who are as follows.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am. Oh, I need a motion.
Well, I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
It's, we're just gonna announce their names, or are we gonna individually state who chose?
No, we're just going to announce their names.
Okay, because when we get to the bottom of this, where it says committee appointments B, I'm gonna state who I voted for, you know,
That's fine.
okay? Because we got a records request, and I don't want any.
Yeah, no. We're going to, they can request that, but I'm just going to, at this point, I just, in the,
I guess just before we do that, Charles, or anyone here, is there any objection to taking the majority vote? I don't have. any-
I was just going to propose this as part of the resolution, yeah. Because I think that the resolution is appoint this contract task force, and they're in red on our sheet. There are 7 people. Correct? All right. So the names are as follows: Dan Aiello, Dennis Dow, Mark Falcone, Gary Hudspeth, Claire LaBrunerie, Bill Long, and Bob Young. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, task force. Thank you guys. So many people volunteered for this, and we really appreciate it because we like the input and the help. We really do.
It's an administrative question.
You may.
So for the advisory groups, and we've set up an email collecting for them so they can receive commentary from the community. Would you like us to do the same thing?
I actually love that. You guys love that. Yeah, I think it's very important. Now, on to our, well, at least we didn't get to Z on discussion items. Here we go. Let's just start.
We have.
Yeah, let's move into that.
Oh, are they not here? Okay. All right, so we're gonna move past A. We're gonna go to Celia's favorite topic, B, shade structures.
Okay.
Okay. Don't scare me by saying.
I didn't ask you here, so we're all.
Oh, is that them too?
Where are we with the shade structures?
Seriously, working with Charlie, 2 weeks for engineering drawings to submit the permitting. And they're ordering the equipment by the end of this week.
For the shade structures.
It's all.
That's it?
It's like,
Well-
how far behind are we from the original scope of what it should be?
You're, yeah, you're focused.
But that's on. So the end of this week would be June 15th.
Yes.
But the original intent was to make sure we had this before the summer. Summer's here, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, well, it's not officially summer until like the 20th.
I've taken over the project.
Thank you.
Anybody else on the shade? How about on the village grills? Whose deal is that?
I'll speak of, I'm on the partner.
Great.
I submitted some paperwork, a list of items where I feel they should be closed or tabled unless we can decide to rent the grills. I think it would be actually better off to just move it than a countertop. That will figure out seven main. Predominantly health reasons. It could be a lot, there's a lot of potential for contaminations. The grills have already been vandalized in order to be used. So the blatant disrespect for the rest of the community.
Are these amoeba?
No, they're burn marks.
Oh, I was gonna say, I couldn't tell what they were.
No, I'm sorry.
Is that like a microscopic picture?
They're about this long,
Uh-huh.
two of them, I don't know how, obviously, they're made, but there's literally an indentation in countertop that something, very hot has been put down on it, I don't know what the surface is constructed.
Is this park and recommendation?
No, I haven't discussed it with them because I was ill at the
Okay.
last meeting, but it has come up before. The general consensus is we'd like to have them removed. I was told that it was cost constraint. But that was from what I understand for the total removal. We would like to have them moved. Well, there's a grassy area in front of the screened section of the amenity center itself. If everybody's really wants to have the grills, most people owners, are feeling, and it's just my own feeling, I can't speak whether it's true or not. Most of the residents who use the grills, who want to use the grills, are renters on Colburn.
Right, and I think that was part of the reason why they were put there, because the renters get access to our amenities.
No, very true, but there is an area on the side that it can be an gated area. Most of the grills are underneath a wood pergola. It's very close to the amenity structure itself. The fire extinguisher is located right in front between the two grills. Heaven forbid there is a fire. It's not exactly the best place for it.
Let me ask now, Lauren, is there a recommendation?
Not necessarily for management. We can take the grill out and fix that top so that it would be like bar top seating. Which would give people a nice place to sit and,
Have we gotten a recommendation from Park and Rec?
the previous recommendation last year from Parks and Rec was to not rent them.
Which
Right,
not to open.
was not to
Not to
open them
open
and
them.
rent them to residents.
Well, actually, see if I have it right here. Sharon had made a motion and it passed that the grills would only be used by the town staff. Obviously, that.
What do you guys, I mean, honestly,
I guess
Would you
like
there's two issues. I think the first issue is more of these are being used and vandalized and gas is being out there in the pool area and things of that nature. So I do have both a health and safety issue on it, but I think if we can cap the gas or somehow disable them from being used, that's the immediate focus. Longer term would be that maybe do a countertop or something else, physically removing them and doing something else, which is going to be something.
Jim, you want to have a comment?
Yeah, I said the email over a year ago, that took the board the option to move them forward. I've probably talked with 10 different people who are trying to use them. Said they couldn't be used. A week or so ago, the guy didn't speak much English, he had it. I said, hey, you can't use those. They don't work because the gas hadn't been running to those rooms. But I don't know, it was, Nicky came down, I'm not sure if he was actually using them.
Was that the day the graduate?
Yeah.
Yes, that's
Right.
my
They
suspicion.
were able to break open that
Both of them.
and turn the gas line on.
Yeah.
They used them, they were.
I'm just, hold on, I'm really thinking, guys, that this is an attractive nuisance. They're not that important in the grand scheme of things. If later on we want to put in a couple of charcoal grills like we have at Lakeside, outside the fence or something, or at the edges, maybe inside the fence, but at the edges, so that they're not near a building and.
There's plenty of room for it. So,
Pardon me?
there is plenty of room.
Yeah, there's room outside that immediate area. Why don't we just put this as an action item for 26?
Well, I'll have to get bids for it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but what's the cost gonna be to take, I mean, really, it's probably gonna be under your $5,000.
It's a non-problem. I'll give them in to just take them out immediately and address the gas line.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's put it on our 26th agenda.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
I have a pretty good relationship with the apartment people. If they would like those grills, it's to the apartments. And we'll, hey, have them removed.
That would be great, Jim.
They
You
could
could,
take them.
yeah, if you could take that on, and they want them, then we'll take them out, they can have them.
And we have discussed that.
They just have to find them a home.
Yep, oh, they got plenty.
All right. 26. Streamline approval process for art, one of my favorite things, and I'm so sad. What?
Diane, sorry.
Oh, from, is that, is Spring Park. Let's go back to A, Spring Park.
So board members, this is Diane O'Neill.
Okay.
Can you come to the public audience and speak? Thank you.
She's here for all of you emailed us.
Yeah. Have a meeting out there. It's empty now.
That's good.
Yeah.
No, it looks so much better.
So before we start, does Charles want to say anything? Excuse me.
Having a real serious,
Charles?
Is it a delay?
yeah, we're having a latency issue.
Hi. Yeah, I'm here.
Do you have anything you need to add to anything?
What are we talking about? I heard Diane come up. Are we talking about the playground now or?
Yeah, we're on the playground now.
We're on the playground. Diane is presently sitting here waiting for you to say something.
Are you asking me to kick it off or I'm sorry, I'm not following. I was waiting for Diane to.
Okay.
All right, let's let Katie start. Yeah.
Okay, okay, so thank you so much for being here. We had a couple questions, just kind of like with the process and everything. I have a couple questions, but I guess I'll maybe start with my questions, is that okay?
Yeah.
All right. One question I had regarding permits for Spring Park Playground. I noticed that today was the deadline for the development review and zoning review. I wanted to know kind of like what the update was for those.
That falls under Debbie, Debbie's here. She's Debbie with the playground with her.
Okay, so that's what I'm trying to.
Yeah, I don't have that information.
So, okay, so is Debbie then doing all permitting or is
Yeah,
that how that's?
The playground vendor was always gonna be the one submitting the permitting. Diane's just overseeing the project and making sure things run smoothly.
Okay, right.
So
I
are
guess,
things running smoothly?
well, the second question I had, I guess, I'll be a little bit more helpful was the weekly updates. I haven't seen any. Where are those being sent?
I just, my official start was the 1st of June, so I did mine. I know Debbie has been sending them. I did my first weekly update last Friday, and that was to CROA, Owners Associations.
Just
Okay, and that's what Jeff had gave me, and I CC'd him on it. I can tell you where it's sent.
Can we be forwarded that?
I wasn't on it, so I would think that.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
So can we pull the thread on that one a little bit about the weekly updates?
I'm sorry, what?
Yes,
Charles.
go ahead, Charles.
Yeah, so can we pull the thread a little bit on the weekly updates, because I think that ties into I from what I'm seeing, and I don't want to speak for the rest of the board, there seems to be some unclear roles and responsibilities from what I've seen with the owner's rep position, because from what I've seen, there's been a lot of management with Lauren and Jeffrey doing some of the heavy lifting, it looks like. And I want to make sure we're on the same page with this, because my understanding is, Diane, you're supposed to be kind of the liaison between CROA and Topline. And my understanding is those reports would be coming from you. You would generally be the go-between. You're funneling the communication to us. I just, especially with obviously everything going on right now with some of the other issues with our covenants, I want to make sure we have clearly defined who's doing what and who's communicating what, and that we are all on the same page around what that looks like. So maybe we can just talk about that. If we just, I guess, Diane, are you comfortable with the owner's rep role? Because I don't know. I haven't seen a lot of communication directly from you, so I just want to make sure you understand kind of our expectations of what we expect from you as the owner's rep.
That's awesome. Yeah, my main point of contact up until yesterday was Jeff. I sent, just so you know, I sent it to CROA board at Town Hall .florida.us. That was where my first weekly update went, and then I CC Jeff. So if I need to be,
I'll
We need
and
to
then
reach
it's
out to
somewhere
your
else, I'll need to know that.
I'm sending it to you.
Yeah, there must be problems. We didn't see.
Yeah, that would have gone to all of us too.
Okay.
Oh, I think I know. There was two CROA board emails I did at one point.
And I think that,
Yeah, but it
yeah, and I think that's where we,
Yeah, it's not.
I think that's where we need to button that up.
That was
Just
my
to
first
verify
one.
that, because
Charles, go ahead. Charles?
yeah, so that's where I think I'm going to go back and just, yeah, all right, hopefully you can hear me. So look, when we had this conversation about a month and a half ago, and Diane, as you know, obviously Vigilant was the prior owner's rep, I made a comment that before we terminate Vigilant and we move to Diane, that we need to have a transition plan in place, and we need to make sure that we're all on the same page around who's communicating, what the plan is like, et cetera, et cetera. And I feel like we're at this point and we still don't have a lot of that defined. So I guess I'm going to go back to my comment around Grand Manor's not having the bandwidth right now to do a lot of this. Grand Manor's, as best I understand, is not supposed to be necessarily doing the daily check-ins, looking at the Osceola website. I have concerns, frankly, too, about this board also micromanaging this project, going and looking at things, making direction, et cetera. So I think we need to clearly define there are four parties here, right? There's Topline, who is the vendor. There is Diane, who is the owner's rep. There's Grand Manors, who is our management company. And then there's CROA, the customer. So we have four different parties here. How are these four parties interacting? Who is taking the lead on what? And we don't have that structure right now. We're all just kind of flying by the seat of our pants. This is beyond Diane, quite frankly. And this goes back to a lot of the failures that I've been talking about with this playground and just doing things without any discipline. But I think we need to get into a place with that. And I guess the first question is, Diane, it sounds like you're going to be communicating directly with CROA, correct? That's where we're all
Correct.
landing with this? Okay.
That needs to change, that is time, but that was.
No, that's, yeah,
That's the
that's,
direction
she's got the correct address, so that she will now report.
So then, okay, so then the only other thing then I would say, and Don, we need to, as a board, make sure that there is, I don't want to use the one voice word, but I'm going to use one voice, because I'm very concerned that this is going to fly off in 7 different directions. And I don't know, Don, if you have thoughts around that, because I think we really, really, really need to be careful about direction. And I think information is fine if we just want clarification on things, but I get concerned or I get some heartburn when we start telling folks to do things differently.
I do have some thoughts on this. I think we should get the reports, but we have 2 meetings a month. I don't think the board should be telling Diane to do anything in the intervening 2 weeks.
I heard
Unless-
that, those emails that she's sending to the board are no response.
Are
It's just read
reports.
only, and that's it.
She's telling us what's going on. That I do not believe
Perfect.
we should respond in a non-public forum.
Right.
And we should be responding as individual board members, because Charles is right. It becomes this cacophony of direction, and this will throw us into a tizzy. We will never get this thing done. So she will report to us along the way if she needs to. My suggestion would be that she does a in-person report. If there's an interim report, if there's an issue, but that we really do an in-person report at every workshop.
Yeah, so if there's any conversation, it should go through Lauren.
Or it should just go through our workshops.
We're not reaching out to Debbie or Diane ourselves,
Okay.
it goes through our.
Even if she works on.
What's that?
Yeah, but I would say though, that in between the 2 meetings, that we don't reach out unless it's an emergency.
Right.
And then we reach out through Lauren or someone who she designates at town hall. But I really think that we need to get in the habit, and if it requires a 3rd public meeting, in a given month, and we call a third public meeting, but I think we need to get out of the habit of litigating via email.
I'm comfortable with a weekly updates. And
Brilliant. I love it. And I think that's, yep.
we have our,
I think that would be so awesome, because then we are, every week, we know what's going on. And then every month, we have an opportunity to engage with those things and say, you know, we're concerned about this item, somebody from the community came and said, this slide is weird, or, you know, whatever it is.
I think the problem was we weren't getting it.
Right, we weren't.
But now we know that the contract started June 1st. The first email was sent on June 7th, it sounds like.
Yep.
Which we didn't get either, but now we're gonna get that forwarded to us, and then it sounds like it'll be corrected going forward.
I think we've solved the problem.
So, yes, so top line will be sending our updates to Diane. Diane will be sending will she be sending a copy of top line's
Anything
emails?
that she thinks is pertinent for us to know as our representative.
Right, and then.
She is our general
She'll
contractor.
be sending it to CROA board
Pro board.
and copying Lauren.
Absolutely, she should copy.
Absolutely. Because we only have 8 weeks, if you think
I
about it. We're down to the wire now. When we have this party, you'll be invited. So that's the change. And then she'll be at our 2 board meetings, workshops, July and August.
July and August,
And September.
and September. Unless it gets done early. All right, any other questions for the two of them?
Well, do you have any questions?
I know they were asking about.
Oh, permitting.
We're just waiting, everything's been submitted, we're waiting for Osceola County. And we can't do anything, I mean, we're doing everything right now, we're almost done with the demo. So if we finished everything we can, the dumpsters are full, they're gonna be changed out again tomorrow.
When was that submitted to the
Which
county? When was it submitted to the county?
I couldn't tell you that, sorry, I did not know what this was about, and I.
No, I'm
I
just
went to the wrong
curious, because
location too, I didn't know it was moved.
I have, I
But
can get a
did
county
check-
commissioner to.
I did check with our GC the other day, and she said everything's been submitted, we're just waiting for a review.
I'll send it up to Peggy then.
The information is in your inbox.
Oh, it is there? Okay, I'll send Peggy a note.
And
Yeah, I'll see if she
dumpsters-
can expedite that.
Dumpsters full, Martin?
Yes, I saw 2.
Yeah, they just were put in and they've been working all day today, and I was just informed that they're gonna be switched out again. There's only, it looks like obviously looks like it's not full, probably, but it's concrete and dirt, which is super heavy, and you can only put so much into it. So I've been told it's gonna be switched out again tomorrow.
Any other questions?
So as of today, still on schedule, no concerns.
No concerns. Still, we're, right now, our proposed equipment is still supposed to be coming in. Proposed means it's coming, it will not be shipping from Burke, but it's when it should be off the assembly line, and that's the mid-July. So we'll probably get it mid to end July, and right now, we're starting installation on July 22nd is what we have on our schedule, but obviously, depends on trucks and drivers and everything like that.
That's hurricane, storm,
Hurricanes, storms and weather and rain and all that kind of good stuff.
lightning, Florida.
Do you think the permits will be in by then?
Typically, it takes 30 days, and so I cannot see why it would not be in.
She said that she would try to step in.
There was 2 things there.
All right, thank you both so much.
Thank you for coming.
I'm sorry I was late. You're gonna have the proper email?
Oh, wait, yeah, it's very confusing.
I sent you it during the meeting.
Okay, all right.
So you have it, and I copied the board on the email, so you can just reply.
Okay, so just to clarify, because Debbie's been sending her own weekly updates to Jeff, and I get CC'd on it, so now she's sending it to me, and then I'm putting that together with just one.
One
It comes to you
package
weekly to
That would
your
be great,
email.
yeah, just so we
And
don't.
then-
So you don't want me to copy you and everybody else like you had mentioned this morning's email?
Let's, well, the board wants it all to go to Diane, and then Diane.
If it's appropriate, as you go. Debbie should send it to Diane, CC Warren.
It's very
It's just a-
Yeah,
Yeah.
Diane is our agent for top line and for this project. So
Yeah, I think it just that reduces potential pain points.
Yeah.
So I like that. Thank you all. We really appreciate it. The next one Eric's not here for, but this is one of my favorites of all the things on the agenda, which is the streamlined approval process for ARC applications, which I think we ought to both discuss and vote on at this meeting. Because ARC needs to move faster. And this would allow it to move a lot faster. And by the way, this was the way it used to be before the dark days of the strange boards.
What are you talking about?
You had strange boards. Your boards were really strange. You had Jackson. It was during Jackson's reign that these were changed, right?
Seriously?
It was changed before we started.
Oh, really? Who changed it? Because it wasn't Debbie's board.
Well, she was on the board before him.
Because somebody changed it after our board, my board.
I don't know. I suggest you look at all the minutes and you'll find
I'm
out.
not going back and reading those minutes.
Well,
This just makes so much sense. Let's
What do you
go
want to
through it.
know, Lauren? Are you going to pull up the list, the 8 items? Screen for everyone?
Well, we are having a joint meeting tomorrow night.
Yeah,
Maybe.
The
Yeah.
joint ARC and Covenant Committee is tomorrow night.
But here are the areas being looked at for streamlined approval, and I think we need an ARC recommendation that we can vote on. I really do. 1, video doorbells. It shouldn't say ring doorbells. It should say video doorbells. There are more than rings. These are things that should be approved without going before the committee. They can be approved by staff. Repainting using colors matching existing colors. I know this to be a fact because 12 years ago, I repainted, 10 years ago, I repainted my house and it was the same color. And they went, okay, same color, good, you don't have to go to ARC. Re-roofing, I did that 10 or 12 years ago using the same color roof. Took me like 2 minutes to get approved. Replacement of lead walk and driveway of the same size, material, and color. Duh. If it's the same, why put it through a process? House numbers of like size and style. Mailbox replacements consistent with our pre-approved standard. Shutter matching existing and following guidelines. And fence matching existing. To me, this is all, there are certain things in life where you just go, duh. These are duh items. I don't know why this shouldn't sail through a vote if ARC says we should do it. All right? Is everybody okay with that?
Fine with it. It makes the process easier.
Oh my gosh, and it'll eliminate dozens, if not hundreds of applications.
The whole point of this is truly outside of the security doorbells. It's
It'll
like
also
for
save our administrative costs.
exactly what it is before.
Like
If there is any issue, the homeowner is going to be responsible for fixing it. If they
If they
decide
want.
to do a set and paint as a base instead of a flat or whatever it may be, if it's not perfectly the same, then you could be liable. for-
Correct, because you signed, you're sending in an application saying it's going to be like for like. It's approved based on those parameters.
Right, so I'm just saying.
That would be as if you went, even if you went to ARC and you said, I'm going to build an addition, and they approve the addition as per the plans, and then you build something that's 4 times bigger. Gary!
Yes. Gary Huntsman. I am the chair of Covenant, so I'm going to
You
speak
also got to
for.
remember the unit
Oh,
cost of administering each of these ARC applications.
We have bad Wi-Fi here.
I think he heard me, but,
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, because he's got a huge delay.
right. So, no, those are excellent, and they used to be pre-approved by staff. There's one thing I would address that staff should be on the lookout for. There are some residents who will put in an application to replace something which is similar or exactly like they have now. But that doesn't mean what they have now is in accordance with the design guidelines. So staff should be very careful when they approve an external light that it still matches the design guidelines, because they might have changed it like 2 years ago and it.
Well, but basically, there's not, this is not like for like in anything. It's like for like color.
I understand, but I'm just suggesting that the staff should be aware that some people will replace something that was never approved to begin with.
And moved, and then the new owner now thinks they can replace it.
Yeah.
Right, like a new owner, or maybe they never got ARC's approval to begin with.
Yeah, all right, but I mean, they're not gonna, the ARC staff, if the, for example, repainting, if it was an unapproved color previously, they're gonna pull it up and say that the color you're asking for was not the previously approved color.
Right, but it is the same color as what they got, but it's not legal.
So under what circumstances wouldn't you allow a ring doorbell?
Under, my thinking of video doorbell, my thinking is under none.
So why not just say you don't need permission?
Why, no,
I would
there are restrictions on colors and wiring.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So that is not true. You have to abide by the color and where the wiring is located. It has to be internal. It can't be wired externally.
Yeah, there are
Give
little
you an
things.
example, if Ring made a hot pink doorbell, it's probably not gonna meet current standards, so.
But it generally should be a
Guidelines
really easy
around it, but
process.
it should be for the process of.
All right, what else we got on here?
E.
I just scroll all the way down.
So is there an action?
No, this is not action, this is all discussion.
I mean, do you expect to get?
Something from Art saying,
That's what I meant. Someone has to tell Art to check these off so you can vote on them.
right, you're right, I asked Lauren to make sure that Art gives us something to vote
Follow
on in
up.
2 weeks. E is Smart Web's application demonstration. Who's doing that?
So smart webs is what we were looking at,
For covenants and ARC.
reference in ARC.
Are you gonna play that?
Can you go full screen?
Hello, welcome to a demo of our Smart Violations product by SmartWix. I'm Chris O'Reilly, Sales Manager for SmartWix.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
We've made it so simple and easy to quickly create and process violation letters for your HOA or multiple. There are 2 parts for our demo today.
I have an idea.
We'll cover our mobile.
Why don't you send this to the board and post it online?
You did.
Let's just do it there.
Did you read my response?
Many years to develop.
I try not to read the emails.
So the benefit of smart webs, and it shows in this video, is that it will do multiple violations on the same letter. And as you move through the process, it will show that that violation has been addressed on the updated letter.
Here's our
That's
online
cool.
mobile app shown on.
But I'll look at the video. I'll check my emails. What did you say?
Well, I wasn't nice.
You weren't nice?
I
I don't
said-
care if you're not
I
nice.
said, and I'll be honest, and I always am, when I listened to that first screen presentation, it was the exact presentation that Graham Addis made when they talked about their software to the board interviewing them. It was like, oh, a deja vu moment.
Cool thing about this though, from my understanding is it's not a long-term contract. You can go, it stinks.
But who's going to pay for this?
Oh, yeah, that would be another discussion. This is just for consideration right now, not for implementation, I don't think yet.
Well, can we,
Well, I think
I
conversation
think we
is
need
justified, right?
yeah.
I mean, I guess
I think
my
we-
question would be, why are we needing to use SmartWeb? Why isn't Grand Matters performing this already?
why
And
can't
if I, yeah, if you'd like me to answer. I'm happy
Please
to do
answer.
that.
It's a workshop.
Okay, wonderful. So, and so here's the bottom line. So we have 3,000 communities that are utilizing SteraNet for both our applications and violations. The very unfortunate thing is Celebration is one community out of 3,000. Because of policy and the way it's designed, the system can't accommodate that. So when we had our initial RFP and conversation, we didn't drill down into the how do you perform inspections in this community. It was a much broader conversation of can your system handle violations? Yes, it does. For 2,999 other communities, the way it's currently designed. Right? So that is the quandary we're in and why right? Now, could it handle violations for all 7? Yes. Can it collate it on one letter? No. Do any other communities look to do it that way? No. Right? So that's the unfortunate situation we're in, and why we looked at smart webs, which that's all they do. It's a niche product that focuses only on architectural applications and inspections. So they're able to configure it and make it very, very, very specific. Where with us, it's a single software that all 3,000 communities use. So to configure it for one community, we could, I'm hearing, because we've had this conversation internally, but that's time, development, and money. And that means, frankly, you're the guinea pig, and I don't know how many of you feel about technology, right? Technology rolling out and being the new kid. I will not put any weight on saying we can do this, it'll be great from day one. Could we do it eventually? Yes. Right? So it's a conversation. It is a business conversation.
I don't know if Charles has a question.
Yeah, Charles. Now we'll wait, so.
I know I've got a horrible delay. I apologize. So I feel like we go round and round with this. I feel like we need to have kind of a philosophical question and or debate. Is it time for us to look at our process? Because again, if we're the one HOA out of 3,000, and this is not, just hear me out. If we are the one HOA that does it this way, and the other 2,999 are doing it the other way, is that something where maybe we need to look at? And again, go back to the Ring doorbells, go back to some of the other stuff. Are we in an archaic, outdated, potentially maybe a process that we need to look at differently? And I think that's where, we can get into these conversations about grand managers paying for this and, what's the cost to CROA, but maybe we need to have maybe a deeper conversation and look at that and have that discussion internally and then figure out, maybe it makes sense to do this and maybe maybe it does work. So I don't know. I want to throw that out there just for reaction.
So to Charles's comment, is this process has been broken since, I think, only since I've been on board. I know the process that I was taught. I know what you were saying. You didn't dig down deep, but you guys were sitting there selling, and that was a big buy-in with the board. We all voted you in unanimously. That was a big buy-in with the board. I forwarded an email, your software. And that software has created such an issue with our team at Town Hall, I'm going to say Town Hall, and Lori and her team, CRC coordinator now, presently. We don't have a covenants coordinator presently.
You do have a covenants coordinator, you don't have a community standards manager. And
What?
you don't have a community standards manager.
Oh, we have a covenants coordinator now?
You've got 2 covenants coordinators. You're vacant 1 inspector, and your ARC coordinator is leaving in a week.
Right. So, well, I'm not saying anything that you're doing wrong. I'm saying that your team has to physically do this. And I say it almost at every board meeting. Lauren and her team have to do it in-house because they didn't get that extra slice of pizza that was supposed to be part of the whole pie.
Let me ask
So we need to
Stacy a
get
question.
this.
Is this something, since we really, changing our way of doing it would be a pretty major change. Is this something that Grand Managers might consider working with smart reps to get included in our new negotiated contract?
I will say this is a blanket statement. Everything is up for discussion. In other
But
words.
what is your opinion?
Well, I will say this, and right, you're putting me on the spot.
I'm just saying opinion, no.
So.
I mean,
my-
we're negotiating.
Absolutely, right?
You did
So at this point, and this is our point of view, there has been in the 3 years with the current contract and the current pricing that was negotiated, which was very aggressive, and we were pleased to enter into it, we are still very pleased to be here, is that there was a very large revenue forfeiture as a result of the current contract price. So we have to look at all things, and we are open to looking at all things when it comes time to renew the contract.
Can I suggest an alternative way of looking at this as well? I did some numbers based on the number of staff hours that are spent manually processing these. And without accounting for the community standards manager time that actually does the mail merge and the final editing of the documents, just the inspectors and the coordinators' time for the year, it's over $17,000 in salary benefits.
And Smart Webs is about
Is $20,000.
20, yeah, I calculated it 17 and change.
Yeah.
So.
So do you think this would work for you? Lauren, do you think this is a good option?
I believe it's a good option for the team. I would like the Covenants and ARC committee to have
I would
a
love to
say
hear
in
from
it
them.
and Gary.
Yeah.
Well, I looked at the online videos because it's in your board book. I looked at it. I will tell you this, that it is an improvement over what we do now manually, but there is something you need to research. When you go through the educational learning video, it talks about pulling down the category and then pulling down the actual violation. As you know, we have 6 categories. There were a dozen listed on there. We can't use those categories. We're going to have to modify the software to use our 6 categories, and then you can write whatever violation you want.
But I would imagine, and this is, I haven't talked to Smart Webs, but I would imagine that if, because they claim 10,000 HOAs are using it, that there's got to be some parameter adjustments.
But we don't know that.
No, we need to find out, and that should be something that the Covenants Committee looks into.
No, exactly. And that's what I want you to do. Do not approve this as is, because we need to rewrite the software so that it has our 6 categories.
And that's what Lauren said, and that's what I think we're saying, is we want this to go to the committee for a recommendation.
Well, we can't make a recommendation until we talk to the developer.
Right, I'm saying, go to the committee for, this is not something we're gonna vote on the 26th.
Right.
So I think we should talk with the committees about what questions you have about the software and its capabilities, and then I can go back to the developer and get those questions answered.
Exactly, but we want to see, before we purchase it, we want to see a live demo.
Oh, we
if
want
it's
to see a
actually
lot of
working.
it.
That's our mistake at the RFP.
I don't wanna buy it until we know a lot of stuff.
Now, I do want to address what Charles talked about. Yes, you could go through a whole example of our process, but I don't know about the other 2,999 HOAs, but we are beholden to our rules and design guidelines, which were originally written by the Disney lawyers. That has been already, I found out, re-stamped for the new Disney communities in California.
Oh,
and
storage
Florida.
or something.
Yep, they took our charter and just rebranded it. They took our design guidelines. So we have a lot that we have to follow up to. Perhaps these other HOAs have a smaller set of requirements to live in.
And that's typical in
Right.
most HOAs.
So,
Yep.
do you want to give up the way we look and the way we operate? I don't think so. I don't think.
Again, I think as Lauren, it's already got. Part of the cost that
Hang on a second. That's not, my understanding is my understanding is we're talking about the number of letters. This is not necessarily, I guess I have to disagree with that. My understanding is the actual execution of the correspondence and the input on the inspector side. I can't see how that has a downstream impact, Gary, on the aesthetics of the community.
I'm
My
talking about
understanding is,
if you want to do a complete rework of how we do it, that would take.
So it only from a letter standpoint
No,
that
in fact, it's the administrative and not the,
When we inspect a home, we'd like one letter to go to the resident. And either we'll have one or it may have a dozen violations, but it's only one letter.
Right.
And that's what we want the software to do. But to be in the 6 categories that we already have, because those are our finding categories. And we'll confuse residents.
But
if we
Disney
have
wanted us to have one letter?
Another category, and we can't find another category.
Well, let's look into it and then we'll go from there and discuss maybe changing things if need be. But we need to do a lot more research because if it is 20,000 a year and it's costing them 15 to do things as they are right now, and it's a $5,000 a year cost to make the process better for the homeowners and better for the staff,
I'm
it's
just,
worth looking into.
I'm just saying cautious on
Yeah,
some.
always confident, Gary,
We
absolutely.
discussed it tomorrow night, but since we have both committees together.
Is Grand Manor's recommendation to use the core or the max program that they're offering?
The max is counting.
You don't need that.
Okay, and then from what I heard, the only thing SmartWeb does differently than today is it will send one letter instead of multiple.
Correct.
Is there anything else
Pictures.
SmartWeb is doing that currently
Pictures.
Grand Manor's is not?
So we do pictures of it.
On all of them.
There's a limit in SmartWeb of how many photographs you can attach to each letter. I saw that in the video.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
have a letter that has, and we do have residents that have 7, 10 different violations.
Yeah, there's a limit to.
We're limited to how many photographs we can send. So that is a limitation right now.
And then is it,
Look into it.
is a covenants letter costing $1.25 per send?
Yes, if you have them send it. There's,
How much does it get cost us? Probably more than that.
you're doing 68 cents for each stamp, plus the cost of envelope and probably an average of 3 or 4 pieces of paper per violation, depending on how many pictures.
So they
So
need
what is it,
everything.
what's the cost now for Grand Manor's to send a covenants? To-
We're sending it, CROA's paying that, you're sending
Right,
it.
what does that cost?
It's a year, it's over 17,000, it's 17,600 and change.
To send a letter?
For all the staff time, the.
No, I'm saying a letter.
The
To send a letter, what does that cost?
So arena paper in sorry. So 68 cents plus 1 penny per page, so 4 cents.
Envelopes are about 10.
Yeah, so you're about $1.
So it's a like-to-like comparison, it's not that this is saving us any money on the sending of the letters, except that currently, if we have the example of 7, you're costing us a $10.50 to send 7 letters versus just will cost us $1.25 to send 1 letter. So there's that cost benefit.
And I'll wait in on here, because I'm putting myself in your shoes. I'm thinking, I'm a board member, I'm a community member, right? What's the best scenario? This also could free up bandwidth, or likely will free up bandwidth. And then you can also have a better inspection experience and utilize those inspectors for more.
Just from an experience
Right.
standpoint, not even purely
Right.
financial, just
Correct.
from the
So
experience.
then-
And experience is a lot of what this board has really mandated, what has been mandated with this improving.
Right.
So then I'm gonna push back on Grand Matters here and say, if you guys are excited about this product, why wouldn't you want it in all of your homeowners associations or communities? And is there something that you can reach out to SmartWeb and get discounted rates because you're bringing a whole lot of business over?
Well, it's a great point, Andrew. The only thing I can respond with is today there isn't a business case because a bunch of communities aren't asking for it.
Yeah, they're working.
We do this with all other communities. It's all automated. It goes through the system. We have a fulfillment center. It's, the easy button.
However, they may want to get the Disney contractor story.
Right, well, that's a good point. So today I don't have a resounding business case to go to SmartWeb and say, I have all of this. And frankly, from our perspective, we could be losing revenue, right? So there's a lot more to unpacking that, but I like how you're thinking.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we have examples of master plan communities that are currently using smart webs? Or do we know other master plan association LCAMs that are currently utilizing it?
They show some, and Covenant is gonna look into that, and make a
Direct conversation versus through the company, because you might find out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there are lots of them.
Sure.
Yes.
The other thing, just to,
Go ahead.
Yeah, can we, is there a way as we get through this? I understand Gary's comments and everyone else's concerns, but I do think we should look at comparing and contrasting all these options. Because I just feel like there are definitely pros and cons to smart web.
And again, that's why I think it should go to the covenants committee.
It is your, who could have outages?
And say, this is better or this is worse.
And I will say SmartWeb's is not new to Celebration. It's what CCMC utilized when they were here.
Because they didn't have problems like we have.
And then just last comment would be, if we do use this for a certain amount of time, who has the data to save for some historical knowledge? So in the event that we do move on from SmartWeb, or SmartWeb purchase stuff after 3 years, 5 years, would be, how do we protect?
Well, we had it, I know that under CCMC, we had the data. We had CCMC use SmartWebs.
Okay, so whether we use them or not, that's.
You still have your data. Charles, we're on to you, F, landscape architect.
Landscape architect. So I've been watching over my duration on the board for a year and change, with the amount of wholesale landscaping that we end up having to rip out, replace, whether it be bushes, grass, what have you. And I got to thinking, I know at one point in time, I believe we had Albert Riddle as our landscape architect. And I feel like, in the same vein as bringing Jeffrey back and
You're done. I'm going to assume you'd like to discuss hiring a landscape architect for ARC 2, which I think makes sense again.
yes.
How about the rest of you? Thoughts?
Do we know the cost?
It's about $20,000 a year, pre, 2020.
Anyone else?
What's the true benefit of having?
True benefit is, again, having someone who knows what works, what doesn't work, what kind, knows more about the plantings, the aesthetics thereof, rather than just sort of going from the seat of our pants with our landscape company, having somebody who actually understands design.
Is that something we need to have on retainer, or is that something that should be more specific to when we're doing parks and things of that nature?
Yeah, I have a question about that.
It was also for residents too.
There was, the one project, I don't remember which one it was, but they did like the, what was it? With the papers, and a landscape architect was hired for that, right? No?
No, one of the owners in Penny Royal designed that park.
And they, okay,
So Brian Causey from Exquisite regularly works with Albert Riddle on other projects. So it would
and he's
be,
he's the landscape architect?
Albert Riddle is,
Yeah,
he
okay.
was
He
the,
used to be on our.
yeah, he was a consultant. You used to have a consulting architect and a consulting landscape architect for ARC, so they could help the community.
And it was mainly to help residents.
What happened?
He was fired along with Jeffrey.
So they both were stopped at the same time?
Yeah,
Previous board.
in previous board.
So is that something we should consider at a meeting?
I just need to understand what the improvement truly would be in having them on. And
My
what is
thinking.
the issue today that they will be fixing?
My thinking is that they're going to be better qualified to help the board make suggestions and recommendations on homeowner landscape changes.
Yes.
So this will be an extension of ARC.
It would be an extension.
And also, I think the pacing clip that with what we're replacing. Yeah, the stuff we're replacing I think we're replacing a lot of things too frequently, and I'd like us to be a little bit more strategic, make sure that we're consulting and putting the right stuff in place versus just kind of wholesale replacing stuff.
I have always thought that again, it's a great idea to have experts at our disposal, given the nature of this community. If this was just a regular old HOA, no big deal, but this is Celebration, and we are supposed to landscape to certain standards. And I think we've seen some deterioration of that in parks, but I think we've seen some deterioration of that in people's yards. I've seen a couple of yards that have been done recently that I guarantee you, Albert would not have passed that the art board passed. I'm not gonna name any names, but there are a couple of them that are really awful.
Can I ask Charles a question?
Charles?
Charles, was this something that you were, wanted to discuss for the 2025 budget or starting with this year's budget?
I think if we can find budget this year, great. If we can't, then let's bring it up for 2025. I think we should quantify though too the amount that we are paying to rip out and replace landscaping. I think there should be a look at that. I think that should be part of the equation. And then obviously for 2024, do we have kind of discretionary budget to maybe bring that on now? And then definitely for 2025.
Yeah, I definitely think it's worth tasking management with looking into it at our next meeting.
What does Charles mean? Charles, what do you mean when you say ripping out landscaping?
Well, we're constantly, every agenda, we are approving landscape repairs, landscape fixes, landscape this and that.
That's always gonna happen. That's always gonna be.
I don't agree. I think something is amiss. Something is not right. I feel like there's some level of, and again, I'm not a landscape architect, but I just feel like we're constantly replacing and repairing and doing all this stuff. And I think there are larger questions around, are these hardy enough? Are these the right plants? Are there better designs? Are there things that would do better in drought? And I just, I don't, how do I say this delicately? A vendor is not going to necessarily give you that direction. They are going to want to get the contract, to get the bid. A landscape architect is going to make sure that they are putting in the best solution in a consultative manner. $20,000 at the end of the day, if we're able to save down the road and put in better solutions that maybe need less watering or aren't replaced as often, it's a no-brainer for the association, my friends.
I have a thought, Charles and all. Why not invite task management with talking to Albert about coming in and talking to us at our next workshop in July, what he could bring to the table in terms of both homeowners and their ARC applications and our internal landscaping issues.
So yeah, the two benefits from tonight that I'm hearing, one is improve the ARC process regarding maybe something is getting improved that shouldn't. And that will improve the beautification celebration as a whole.
And to Charles' point, maybe too, help us do less maintenance if we start with the right plants and design to begin with. Possibly, and that's something to ask Albert.
That would be the second thing, when we're getting bids from Exquisite or yes or anyone else, that it is appropriate what we're putting in or it makes sense versus replacing it in 9 months.
And again, I don't see that there's any downside to it. Our next workshop, asking Albert to come in and talk to us, and I think he would.
I thought Brian discussed all of that at our last meeting about different kinds of flowers and why he plants them certain times.
We've been having a lot of talks with him about the correct plants to put in the correct places, because obviously some of them are not drought tolerant and some of them need more watering than others. Like at Spring Lake, we're doing that switch from zoysia to St. Augustine because St. Augustine's more drought tolerant.
We got dead plants right outside our door here.
Yes, so.
What do you guys think of that? Just consensus having him come in, just to talk to us. We haven't made any decision to do it yet.
Yeah, I'm fine having a conversation.
Okay, we're gonna have a conversation about the next workshop. Perfect. Now on to tennis usage and rules review. Boy, that Andrew.
Yeah, so I guess from feedback that I received from homeowners, it's that the rules we implemented don't help or doesn't solve the problem. So in trying to be an attentive board, I think we need to revisit it, and just some kind of thoughts that I had is, do we need to have resident homeowner only tennis courts for a specific period of time or all day so that they have those available to them versus vendors or advantage tenants taking over all courts so no one's there. So a couple things to think of would be, 7 to 9 and 4 to 8 seem to be the peak hours from my research that people have come to me on that are problem areas. And you know, for those hours, do we allow only one court to vendors so that homeowners can use the other two at Lakeside? Or do we allow two and keep one for homeowners? You know, how do we handle that? And then is it something where we say, you know what, on Saturday mornings, say from 9 to noon, that's homeowners only, no vendor lessons or anything of that nature?
Why don't we kick it back to Park and Rec?
Yeah, we can kick it back. I'm just saying that I think we need to,
Yeah.
we need to pivot on
I
our
think,
original
I
recommendation.
don't think there's a recommendation, and again, when we talked about it, we said, this is a very temporary thing, and we were gonna see what happened. And, there were a lot of very good arguments made against it, but I don't remember an issue being more divisive in years, than tennis is right now, except for pickleball, maybe.
It's always been tennis.
Tennis, it's always been tennis. Tennis has been an issue, and you can't make everybody happy. The tennis players are gonna be mad if a vendor's using it, and those who get training from the vendor, legitimate residents who get trained by the vendor are gonna be mad if there's no time for them to get taught how to play tennis. So that's why I think it's such a big issue that this board can't make a decision without some help from Park and Rec.
Right, and yeah, we need to strike that balance between vendor and homeowner use.
Which I thought we've been trying to do.
Tennis has been an issue since I started. My
Yeah.
first day, I heard about tennis and pickleball. We did an RFP for tennis and we severely restricted Darren's hours in terms of usage of the courts based on the recommendations of the then rec committee. I know the rec committee has constant conversations about tennis at almost every meeting. That's why they're trying to come up with different solutions and different remedies for the issue.
And let me just throw this out for you and everybody. I'm never gonna make everybody happy. We will always have people mad about something. We will always have somebody coming to us and go, we need to build this. Because I want it and my people want it. You know, we have a finite amount of money, we have a finite number of facilities, we have finite ability to do things. Somebody's always gonna be mad, but I think Park and Rec should be tasked with tweaking it if there's tweaking to be done. I don't know.
They're trying to tweak it since 2020.
Right, but I mean, what else can you do except continue to try to tweak it? Because somebody's always gonna be mad.
Yeah, no, I guess I look at it as, I cannot make every homeowner happy, but I'd rather have the homeowners happy than a vendor happy. So that's,
Yeah, but
that's
see,
the line here.
that's simplifying it way too much, I think, Andrew, because it's not the vendor is teaching residents. And we've had residents come to us.
Yeah, so I can clarify. In 2022, when we even started this RFP, we had a meeting in the rec committee specifically about tennis. There were an equal number of people that loved Darren and wanted his services to stay as those who wanted him to go. And upon exiting the meeting, there was almost a fist fight.
Right, which means it needs attention.
But it's not as simple as saying it's, the one group makes it, because everybody has to create a villain. When you're trying to win an argument, you create a villain. And the villain that those who want the courts with no teaching on it have created is the vendor. But the vendor is not necessarily the issue, it's the fact that we have a finite resource and more people who want to use it than we have the resource. More people want to use it.
And the other thing too, which I haven't seen, is where are the numbers as far as how often is Advantage Tennis on it?
We
How
have those at our, yeah, we got those at our, I don't know which meeting.
I know, but we have daily numbers as far as what courts are used throughout the day, who's using it, what people, all sorts of things. We have that we can say, okay,
I would have to
50% is
stand all
being.
day.
Yeah, well,
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Let's have a business case of if 75% of usage is Advantage Tennis and 25 is homeowners, but
well, we know
there's
that's
a
not
number
the
of
case.
homeowners on top, then, okay, maybe.
No,
Advantage
because
Tennis-
what are his hours? It couldn't be 75-25 because he has limited hours that he can use the courts.
That he's allowed to use the courts.
He's allowed how many courts?
2 courts in the mornings and on a select number of days, and then in the afternoons on a select number of days, he gets 3 courts because that's when the kids get out of school
and they do their
And
tennis.
how many days a week? It's only like
Two or three.
2 or 3 days a week. So there's no way he could be 75-25.
Right, so let's understand that.
And he can't even be 50-50. He can't. The math, it's impossible.
Right, so,
So the resident tennis players get the courts more than the tennis learners. Now, that's what I would rather call it, as opposed to the vendor. It's the tennis learners get it less than the tennis players.
yeah, so I think for Parks and Rec, for them, define.
But let me tell you, the tennis players would just as soon see all the learners, some of them would just as soon see all the learners gone.
No, yeah, I don't wanna see that
I don't wanna see
amenity in the league, so it needs its place here to help interest and be something that is a service to our community and homeowners, but.
And everybody needs to realize we're out of money. We are, once we fix 851 or do something to it, we're out of money. Unless we come up with a magical way to print money for an HOA or raise dues dramatically. Hi, Gary.
Just a statement, Parks and Rec have had this data ad nauseum for 2 to 2.5 years. They looked at the numbers. It's not a secret. They've got the data.
And the fact of the matter is, one of the worst things we can do, and I try not to be guilty of this, is to get too caught up in the complaining. Because there's a lot of back porch complaining. We'll occasionally get emails, but remember, generally, that doesn't represent the majority of the community. Those who say it's the majority are almost always lying. It's their majority, it's not the majority.
But again, if it's a problem for 2 years, clearly we
But
have.
no, it's been a problem for years
I know,
now.
but it has been solved, so let's.
But how do you solve it without building more courts?
Is that the only answer?
That's the only answer.
For the courts.
It's the only answer. Because nobody wants to play at noon in the summer. So the courts sit empty. The courts sit empty for the vast majority of hours in the day. Except for those prime periods when everybody wants them simultaneously. The problem is we cannot make sports facilities for the maximum number of people who want to use those facilities. It's physically impossible. And it almost feels like pandering when we say, we're gonna fix your problem at the cost of someone else's issue. We have to kind of weigh this, and I think that's what the Park and Rec Board, our committee has been doing, as Gary said, year after year after year, but you're not gonna make everybody happy, you're just not.
It's not, it's also, it's just not Advantage Tennis. There's the women's tennis group, club, or whatever they're called. There's the men's tennis club, so if there's a resident that goes on the courts that wants to play tennis and they see a group of people, they automatically think it's Advantage Tennis.
Well, and then there's residents that have their friend come to the court with them and
Right.
teach them, and they think it's advantage, but
Right.
it's not.
So it's not. But this has been going on, and Warren felt it right out. Since 2021, they all came in, they all said what they had to say, they exited, there was a brawl in the lobby, and
See,
it's still going on.
See, let me take it further back. 2009,
Oh, God.
the tennis people came to us and insisted that we build more courts. Because remember, then we had 3, now we have 5.
Right. But we
Because they
also,
said we must have 5 so that they could hold tournaments.
but we also have to realize, from when you're talking up till now, there was some 1,700 apartments on the boulevard and down in Island Village and all the homes in Island Village. So we've outgrown those tennis courts.
I agree, but what are we gonna do?
Well, I would have had a perfect solution for it, but
Which was
I'm not even going there.
more
Yeah,
money.
keep going.
Yeah, I mean, it's more money. That's
Money
the
tree.
only thing I can come up with. Huh? Anybody have any better idea?
Charles has something to say.
Charles, you have a better idea?
Yeah, can you hear me better now? Is this better?
Yeah.
All right, apparently it's my speaker. I went to headset. I think what's happening, and I agree with the comments. I don't think building more courts is the solution. I think this is going to be, it's going to be a multi-pronged solution. There are discussions right now about looking at key cards, right? The number of folks who can access our amenities. Right now, I think we have, 4 per card, I think is what we have. So I think there are conversations around that. I think that's number one. Number two, technology. Technology is going to be something that I do think we need to think about as we look at this, right? With cameras, with the Gallagher solution, with that. I think that's something we also need to think about as we look at the monitoring and utilization. And then 3, this is going to seem contrary to what I just said about building more courts. I do think we should look at the master plan, right? The advisory group, and just look at that too. And obviously that's not to say let's build tennis right away, but and that ties into what we're saying about the utilization and all that. Get that data, get those metrics, and then what does that look like? And then we can have those conversations with the master plan advisory group, or even Mattamy, right? I know Mattamy's doing a lot right now for phase 2. So that's all. I just wanted to say that.
Okay, thanks, Charles. Guys, can I ask that we move the Apex update up, because we're really going long on some things. I want to let Richard go home.
Yeah, I just had a suggestion on the.
Come on. Now, Richard is the guy who turned the AC on at 8:51. Magically made it work. I don't know how he does it. It's like magic, man. So, did you have an owner's comment before?
I did.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I have friends that play tennis. They love
Really?
it. And they love it. They go there more like these people are fanatical. But I've been a resident for 15 years. Okay, you're going to tell me. More often than not, when I go downtown, there's at least 3 courts on because it's so hot. Can you not put a sauna? So
Shay, that might be a solution down the road, but again.
So utilize it for more at a time rather than just building more.
Yeah, it comes down to money.
How much is that a sauna? For a sauna?
We're putting
Listen,
some
idea.
parks, they're expensive. Anyway, I want to do an update on the AC.
Yep.
As you all know, 8:51 was incredibly hot. The AC was not working. We brought Richard in to look at what happened. Tell us what you found.
Okay, so the main building over there, the AC was working. What you have over there is a chilled water system, so the central system itself was working. That wasn't the issue. Each zone where you have a thermostat, the ductwork comes in and it passes through a damper that also has a heater in it. It's like a separate unit, even though it's not. And all it does is open the damper and let cold air in, or closes the damper and partially, and then just turns the AC off and then puts the heater on, so wherever your heat or cool. Very different concept to how normal AC works. So basically what happened is the system had shut itself down, so all the dampers had closed because the main control system had noticed, I think about 6 errors. Once it registers 6 errors, it shuts itself down. So when we got there, we reset all the errors, reset the system, and we noticed that the main vane wasn't opening. So we manually opened the main vane, that got us some air. Then the system shut down again, and we're like, okay, what's going on here? So the other thing it registers, it has a magnetite gauge, so it measures the pressure between the positive and the negative side of an AC system. So that way it ensures you have enough airflow. If there's not enough airflow, again, it will shut them dampers, so you won't get any air. That was caused by a loose belt, which we reported and said, okay, you need to do this. They did get that tightened up. However, you can't just put 2 belts on. You have to have a matched pair. Although they're the same size, if they're not exactly the same size, you get one that's flapping and one that's not. So now we've got the whole thing shaking. So we can do bearing damage. So you have a number of issues going on over there.
Why can't you get 2 matched belts?
You can.
Oh, okay.
You can, that's what I'm saying, but you have to buy it as a matched pair. You can't go and buy an A26 belt and an A26 belt because they're slightly different.
That sounds to me like a couple $100 issue.
Oh, it's not a big issue, yeah.
Yeah.
So that wasn't the main. So the main issue is the system's 30 years old. You have a mechanical rather than electronic control system. It's just archaic. It's old, it's tired. But the main cooling bit was replaced in 2016 with a carrier unit. The bit inside is 30 years old, your air handler. But that's a train. So right now we have a mismatch. They're not designed to run together.
So in
But
other
that's
words,
not
lots of
the-
mistakes were made
Oh, yeah.
in both the installation of the app system
Mhm.
and in maintenance along the way.
Yeah, so when I looked into the maintenance side of things, I don't want to go on hearsay too much because, I've never seen them go here for more than a day, or they were only here for 2 hours. I don't know, I wasn't there. But to do a maintenance on that system would take 2 guys 2 days. So you've got to imagine there's chilled water running around and around and around. That, it doesn't matter how clean the system is, over 30 years that's going to build up sediment, all the rest of it. There are filters inside that system that have to be cleaned. That water has to be changed. But again, in this scenario, that wasn't the issue. The issue was the control system, which is standalone.
Now, I wanted you to come in to talk about what we could do, but now we've moved. Will this, until we can decide what we're gonna do with the building, will this keep it alive? Keep the building from, can we nurse it along until we decide what we're gonna do to the building? Because one thing I don't want, if we're going to fix the building, I don't want a rotten building before we fix it.
Yeah.
So keep mold one.
Right.
Yes.
Any other questions for Richard?
It's your professional opinion, a full replacement's needed, not repairs to keep it going, because it is a 30-year-old system.
But again, budgetary wise, and I know it's, keep building, you're not going to building, like what do you do?
But yeah, but just
The main issue there is the control system, not the AC system itself. Even though it's 30 years old, I mean, I'm a carrier dealer, but trains back in the day, they used to say nothing can stop a train, that was their thing, and that thing is it's a bit, that's not the issue. It's your control package is what the issue is.
And that's a few $1,000 fix,
Probably $80,000 to $100,000.
just for the controls.
They're purpose built.
Oh,
That's not something we would do, that would be a controls company that would come.
you don't have those sitting on shelf.
Now, we can fix it. Now, what I would say is the main room where you normally have the meetings, apparently hasn't had any AC for quite some time. When I went up into the ceiling, the power was shut off to it. So I put the power back on, tested it all, and all I found wrong so far is a partially seized damper and a bad thermostat. So I don't know why that wasn't ever addressed for years.
Basically, saying crappy maintenance.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That's why you send it to them.
We need we send it to our previous vendor. We've had years of bad maintenance. Years. And
So
that's really
I
what,
did
all
actually
of
go
that
around-
struggle was because it was not a good maintenance process. We had, so, thank you. Do you guys have any more questions for Richard? Because I
I
want to.
have one more thing.
Yes, sir.
I was just gonna say, so beyond the $100,000 expense, anything else that you've seen that is troubling or concerning overall?
For the whole place, yes. So I've been around and checked every ACU. So in here, like the new place, everywhere. So there is, it all depends whether you want to be proactive or reactive. You want to wait till it dies, or you want to say, okay, after 10 years or 12
It's
years.
cheaper to be pro than
Yeah.
re.
So you have units that are from, one of the units in here is from 1999. How long do you want it? How long do you want to run it for?
And how is it mechanically though?
Not good. So you have,
Huh? Yeah, efficiency.
oh, yeah. So you have one unit, and I forget where it was because I got kind of confused going around and around. It's had 2 compressors. I think it's over.
Lakeside?
Yeah, lakeside. So the arm flex, the foam, the insulation that goes on the suction line, that has to be there. Otherwise, the sun will boil off the refrigerant, you'll get liquid flow back to the compressor. You put 2 compressors on it and there's no arm flex on it. I'm not surprised it's blown up 2 compressors. That's simple
Same vendor?
maintenance things. Right, very simple things. Now, one really confusing thing to me is the new bit. Well, yes. I don't know how that ever passed inspection. So we all know when you put units in.
No surprise there.
So one of the main codes that was brought in 6 years ago is you have to have locking caps, because people steal the fruit, they're so expensive.
It's expensive
So you
too.
have locking caps, the inspector checks it, you have no locking caps. And it's just like selling a car with wheels on it, I was amazed. Because I know the inspectors, and they are, like Noel Brown, the chief inspector, is extremely strict. And I'm amazed at that passed.
Those of you who are here, the five of us, I know this isn't the time for action items, but he's done a lot of work, and it sounds like good work. I mean, he fixed 851 when nobody could fix 851. He says we've got a problem. Can we pay him for a report? I mean, does that make sense that we actually have somebody who's competent as opposed to our previous vendor who was obviously
What do
incompetent
you mean pay him for a report?
on what needs fixing?
What he just
Well,
talked about?
Yes.
I can do that, you don't need credit for that.
Okay, because I would like to know what this is gonna cost us
Yeah.
to bring, before we have a problem, because right now, we're out of facilities. If this thing goes down, we're back at nowhere, we're gonna sit out in Spring Park on the playground.
Well, when your RV going.
It's gone, it's.
So my question is,
And this AC isn't that good.
you said it was gonna cost almost $100,000.
That's for 851.
Right. Right now, we just want to keep it so that it's keeping the building cool or keeping growth from growing. Like, and that'll reduce the electric bill, right? Because we're gonna keep it at its, like, when people go away, they raise their thermostat.
Yep.
So we're gonna raise the thermostat and make it so that the building just stays. Could we do that without doing anything else? We just
I
get the
think
two
that's where we're
belts?
at now.
That's where we are.
That's where we're at.
Can we at least have,
Yeah.
change the belts?
I think, no, they didn't change them, they just tightened them, it caused a bigger problem now, vibrate.
So we should change the darn belt. And that, Lauren.
Well, there's bearings that need to be greased, like, it's a whole process.
But we're not talking more than $5,000.
Oh, no.
Okay. Then Lauren can do that.
The way things are as is, how long can it maintain as is? A year? No.
Till the next hurricane.
Yeah.
So normally months.
So the outside unit, the compressor, all that, the expensive stuff is in good condition. That's the 2016.
Mhm.
The inside is old and neglected. It just needs taken care of. And then the control system, although archaic, is functioning to a certain extent.
And you said we were told there was only one zone.
So every single thermostat has its own zone.
We were told
Yeah.
back in 2021, that's what I remember because we just came out of COVID and David Anderson kept saying, we need to get this all checked. And there, I guess, was that the company?
That was pre-us.
Okay. He kept
Yeah,
saying.
we've had that same company since 2019.
Okay, so they said, well, the problem is, there's only, because we kept saying, well, turn it off on the office side so that the air comes in the meeting side, and they said, no, there's only one zone.
Yeah, so
So there
not
wasn't
all
only one
AC
zone.
companies can fix all AC units. It's very, very different. So this is a commercial chilled water system, similar to what they run at the Mall of Millennium.
Okay.
So we did a lot of work there. We did a lot of work at the Magic Kingdom, same thing. It's,
Like this, the downtown of Celebration is chilled water.
yes, so there's only kind of us and two other companies that have any idea how to,
Okay.
well, let me rephrase, that's not chilled water. So again, there's a difference.
Downtown's not chilled water?
They're water cooled.
Oh, water cooled, that is different, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, they're using water towers.
Correct, yeah. So on that one there, outside we chill the water and then pump the cold water around, blow air over it, take the heat out, and then it comes back. Down there, it works like a regular one, but instead of having a condenser outside, it uses water to cool it, for a heat exchanger, a bit like a pool heat.
Any other questions for Richard?
We were to proceed with replacing the control for about 100,000. How long would that last?
Well, then you've still got an air handler that's 30 years old, but again, it is running well. But again, it's, we sent the price, so to replace The chilled water system is about $250,000 to replace the inside of it.
Yeah, we get
And
that.
that doesn't include the control system. So again, the control system, yeah, maybe 60,000, maybe 80,000,
And my honest feeling is we are going to either tear down or rebuild that building in the next 2 years.
In which case, you'd probably nowadays you go with the BRF system rather than chilled.
That's in that, I think in the scope for later on.
Yes, that's related.
Yeah, that's just a conversation.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
One last thing, so the AC units in here are from 2009 and 22. So again, and well past this deadline.
Yeah.
So again, I can pull this on a report.
We
send
need
it
to
over
know
you,
so that
you
we
know
can
how
start,
much stuff
and
is.
put them in priority order, which is the highest priority items for us, so that we can start fixing those things that are at the top of the list.
So who's gonna be are we voting for a new?
Preventative maintenance contract.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to issue an RFP for it. So
You have to get it on paper.
You
it's
do.
over $10,000.
Yeah, so we have to put out an RFP, but again, it needs to we need to make sure it's qualified.
Right.
Yeah.
The RFP is with qualified vendors.
Yeah, everybody loves to say that. Well, yeah, it's
Sounds like there's only
celebration and then.
Pardon?
It sounds like there's only a handful of them right
Right.
now, so it's a short list.
Thank you, sir, very
Thank
much.
Thank you.
We really appreciate your efforts on our behalf. Now, okay, now we're gonna go to Charles' procurement challenges. Charles,
Might be sleeping.
is this a new game show?
Okay,
Welcome to procurement challenges.
no, I'm up. All right, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, all right, I'll try to keep this quick. I'll try. I think we need to have a conversation about the end-to-end procurement. And when I say that, I think we have some systemic failures at different points in our procurement cycle. And as I've looked at this and in my time on the board, we can look all the way back to pickleball. We can go even further back. I think there are challenges with the vendors that we seem to have limitations in terms of who we go out to, who's responding to the RFPs. I get a little bit concerned when we can't get 3 bids. I think we need to think about each part of this procurement process and break it down and just make sure that we're doing this in an optimal manner. There are some things that I've just noticed just in my professional experience as I've looked at our procurement processes, like, we seem to, I don't know why we don't have our RFPs on our website. Like, that's a great example. When you look at a lot of like public sector organizations, or I've even seen some HOAs, when I was looking at playground RFPs, a lot of them have the solicitations out there online. We've gotten into the mindset of being very local with our procurements. And when you think about the Celebration name, my position is people will come to Celebration. People want to work in Celebration. We've made the excuse that we can't find vendors, and I don't think it's a viable excuse. So I think that's one area that I think we really, really need to look at. I think another area, we talked a little bit about this, is how are we procuring these? So what is the vehicle that we're using? Are we using RFPs? Are we using RFIs? Are we using, just straight up bids? My feeling is RFPs can scare people away. RFPs are extremely, extremely complex marketings, and they need to be used for the right purpose. I think there's an opportunity to look at our boilerplate. It is an extremely complex and ugly looking document. I would feel better if we would maybe bring in an agency or a procurement partner, someone to come in and look at this.
Charles,
and I think,
can I interrupt for a sec?
Yes.
We have Stacy here. And that sounds to me like something that Grand Manners probably has in-house that we may not have asked about. Stacy?
Yes, so and this may cause a little anxiety for some as I say this, but let me get through it. So we have a vendor services division. Once upon a time, we did bring them in to try to help. And at that time, they were not a robust division, and we were lean on resources, and it didn't go well. Fast forward today, we have a much different vendor services infrastructure and team. And part of what they are here to help with is things like this, the RFP process.
Streamlining
Exactly. And providing recommendations.
and helping us find vendors who can bid, because that's been an ongoing issue, is finding them internally.
Yes. So they are a service arm to our communities.
How do we use that?
You just say, go.
I've actually been using them for the pool restroom revamp and the pool deck resurface.
So Charles, they have just started using Grand Manners for this purpose.
So and I recall when that was brought to us, because that was when we were looking at playground vendors, as I recall, when we started going down that path. And I remember those meetings did not go well. Would it make sense then to have a meeting with the vendor relations, maybe a public meeting, just to kind of talk through their capabilities and have kind of another discussion around that? Would that make sense for everyone?
My workshop.
Oh,
Okay. Cool.
Does that work? July workshop?
Yep.
Stacy?
yes, as long as
We
they're
can do it
coming, we'll make sure they're
remotely
available.
or remote.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Or remote. Remote is fine. Okay, thanks, Charles.
All right. Thank you.
Budget timeline. I assume that's yours?
It is mine.
Can I make a suggestion?
Oh, sure, Jim.
If you'd like to table this, move this on until the finance committee has a chance to look at this on Tuesday night.
I think we can, it's not something that we've done with the finance committee before, it's just a proposed timeline.
It's just a timeline. This isn't any specifics.
Yeah, it's just that, I mean, we were into late September last year before we got to finalize the budget on finance.
What's your, when do we finalize? Late September. Do you have a late September date on there?
Yeah, September 30th.
She has September
The
30th.
board closes the budget to the community, and then you approve it in your October 23rd board meeting.
Okay.
And here's the timelines that we've had the last couple of years.
So it's just basically, we're gonna,
Yeah.
we're gonna wait for that. We'll have it at the end of September. Thank you.
And it's more of an FYI.
It's an FYI.
Yeah.
It needs to be approved, it's just, this is what we're gonna try to stick
It's
to.
just something that we always discuss at the board level before we start passing things off, so you have some transparency in what we're doing.
So, I would say, yeah, we're doing this, the template now, but yeah, have conversation this month. If there are suggestions, recommendations, we can always look at those.
And, who owns J? Management company evaluation.
Well, that's all of us, but I can start. So, we did do our board evaluations back in April, and the results were shared. So, just kind of go through the first page if you can. Of the average scores, only 9 met expectations. If we do the majority of the board, 75% did. So,
Why just so I can understand this, because while I'm in the financial business, I'm more the marketing side as opposed to the number side. Why the big difference between the two?
I would say it's probably because.
Gary can explain.
Hi, Gary. Explain the math to me.
There are 7 board members. If each of you graded an element a 3.0, which is standard, you're performing as best. One person who grades it a 2.0 brings the entire average of the entire board to 2.9, which makes it look like that you're not performing well. So it's better to look at a majority. When you vote on anything on an action item, you take a majority vote. So it takes 4 out of 7 and the motion passes. And you do all your financing that way, the budget, any rules and regulations, it's always a majority. So rather than look at an average score of only 7 people, it's better to look at a majority. So if the majority of the board votes, that'd be 4 people, a 3.0, then the element is satisfactory, even though 3 others.
So basically, it takes out the
The low and high score.
low and highs.
Exactly,
Well, I understand that.
yes,
Now I understand that.
yeah.
All right,
So it's better to look at it that way.
perfect.
But like, can I ask you a question, Gary?
Yes,
So like there's 7 of us and the scores, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And all 6 of us vote that they would give it 4, and 1 board member votes for 1. Is that gonna bring it down?
Pull your calculator and do it.
It'll bring it down,
It'll bring it down.
but it
I'm
won't.
not gonna answer it, you do the calculation.
Oh, gosh,
But
it's like
yes,
being in
it'll bring it
school.
down.
God.
You want me to do it?
He's your professor.
But I think it's good Gary reported both.
Yes.
So we
Oh,
have,
yeah.
I have the board majority score and then we have the average score. So
Right.
we can see both, because I think when you guys did the evaluation last summer, was
Yes.
it last summer? Was it only the average or was it the
It was-
average and the
It
board
was
majority?
the average because you were looking at all 141 elements, and the board wanted to know what was not being performed well and what was being performed as directed or better. So there were enough items that Grand Manners decided to do a get well area of the survey.
I think you're giving it to us all.
Right, but I did that because you're gonna ask. But realize how you do everything every day is majority rules. So it's better to look at the majority, because one bad actor can make it look terrible, and that's not fair. Do I need to mention tennis again?
No, sit down.
Okay.
I get the math now.
And
Right.
so, and just, I want to add a little more color here, because I think the comments that have been going back and forth through email was that this is not an apples to apples comparison, right? That the evaluations we did last year as a board are not aligned with what we're evaluating now. And I would argue that we're evaluating 2 different things, and Gary alluded to this. We evaluated the statement of work. That was last year. We evaluated the eHarmony, the 85 personality elements or whatever. That was what we had back then. Now we're evaluating the action plan. How did they perform on this action plan? And I would argue that Gary's right. The majority is a good indicator for that. And you don't necessarily need to look at an average of this versus an average of that, because they're different. This is, again, it's not an apples to apples exercise. We are evaluating the action plan, not what was done last year. That informed the action plan. Now we are evaluating the action plan. So apples to apples is irrelevant in this exercise.
Exactly.
This is absolutely totally clear. Thank you.
And I also want you to know, I went back and looked at the majority votes for all 141. There were only 4 items that didn't have a majority vote. In other words, out of 141 last summer from the previous board, virtually everything had a majority vote that was equivalent. There were only 4 where there was no majority vote, and guess what? It matched the action plan scores. So you are closely aligned to what the previous board said.
So in your apples to apples rough comparison, it's pretty close.
Pretty close, but Charles is exactly right. The 2 are totally
They're
different.
different things.
The first evaluation led to the action plan, and what you evaluated was the action plan, because that's where you had to go. That's what you needed to do.
So using this template, I would love for us to do every 3 months.
I was
For
gonna
this
say,
year?
us redoing it too. That's.
Yeah, every quarter we do
I'm
this,
fine
we
with
use the same template so that.
Then we
So
have
then we have apples to apples. Yes, Gary? Hard to do?
That is not a good sample size, because if you do it every month, you don't have enough time to see the improvement or degradation.
Yeah, that's true.
I think those some items I've already seen some changes in, from the last time that I did take it, and if we did it in 3 months, it would be a way to document that and give grant managers the feedback they need.
Well, what I don't want to do is have you change your votes since you just did this. That's not fair to grant managers or you, because everybody can see what you're doing. I'm changing my score because I didn't like the way it came out, whether it be good or bad.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying specific items, things have changed.
I understand.
So if we were to take this survey, when did we do it, April? So May, June, July, like Andrew said, July, or even 6 months from now. I could take what has transpired in May and apply it to my next.
I would not recommend doing any
It's
evaluation
called recency bias.
between evaluations.
Why not just?
No, that's different. That's
If you
different.
see something change for the negative, why not just send us an email and say, hey, I see this slipping, can you address?
That's what
we
we
want to
should
do
do.
every 6 months then.
I could agree
That's-
to that too.
No less, no, no less than
You
6.
you don't want a short,
Yeah, Charles?
Yeah, listen, the reality is if we're trying to turn this into a narrative to go to RFP or make it for a position to fail, then this is not going to go anywhere. The goal is to make sure that they're successful, to try to drive that in the right direction. So I don't think, I think to the point that was made, yes, we should correct those through email, we should have those conversations, but I think redoing it, especially with like a something that we know we want to score lower, I don't think that's going to be productive.
It could be higher too.
that is true, but the timeline is too short. I'd rather you do it annually, but Lauren is spot on. If you have a problem, it's your obligation as elected officials to say something to grant managers. Write an email, say, let's work on this together. That's the way to do it collaboratively with the contractor, grant managers. You shouldn't have to wait for an evaluation and then say, well, I've been meaning to tell you that you should do this better.
I think it's more for transparency for the community to see as a whole, like how things are going. Take an RFP off the table. That has nothing to do with continuously
Well-
doing a 6-month evaluation when you provided the perfect template for it.
You have all the transparency in the world when you have 2 board meetings a month.
Yeah.
If you don't like something that they're doing, say something.
I didn't say it was something I didn't like. It could be improvements too,
Well,
and
guess what? We have board members that congratulate them all the time. And you do a good job.
but not just for the action plan though specifically. Residents do, a lot of these items, they do talk about. And, if there is positive, if there is, things are falling, being able for us as a board to do the evaluation, you give us a perfect template to do it. It's 6 months instead of 3 is fine, and then it gives feedback to everyone, and it does it in a concise way, that where it's not like a whole bunch of different, things coming out.
Here's what I would like you to do. Looking at the last board evaluation with 141 elements, and then we did an update on the action plan, which took the 31 elements that were graded poorly last summer. Action plan, asked you evaluated.
Oh,
How
I
we
see
doing
where
that?
you're going. Just take the areas where they came in below and,
Guess what? From the last evaluation, the last board, in your evaluation of the action plan, there were 3 overlapping categories. You don't need another evaluation.
of
to figure
every
that out.
category, right.
Your job is to talk to grant managers and say, we've had 2 evaluations that already identified 3 areas of overlapping. Now it's time to talk.
Yes, I would just.
The other thing,
I would want it on everything because you should be performing on everything.
And you
Well,
can
that's
do it.
an annual evaluation.
Yeah, there's,
Employees, you have your mid-year review and your annual review. I don't see why every 6 months should be.
well, no, just, that does seem overkill. And I can see reevaluating every 6 months on the areas where they're coming up short. And there are a few of those. I mean, we got art timeliness, that's a 2, okay? So in 6 months, we look at the areas where they're coming up short, and are they better? And that's really it. Are they better or not?
So that's where you.
So we have to understand, when we did that with the art timeliness, we
We were 360 in the hole.
yeah,
Yeah,
but we have a new
How is that a
committee
command
now.
manager's failure when it's the committee that has to vote?
Right, but see, because it's not just because the timeliness, as there are management issues within that too, the processes, like things getting lost and,
But
you know.
But
Well, like-
there are other surveys that you can implement.
And I think that's part of the reason why that comes up as a low score. I don't know why I was on this, because I didn't do
You know
this.
why our time list is so low? It's because the previous board took it away from ARC and made him do everything in the staff. And now,
Okay.
now tonight you turned around and said, you should do these automatically. So it was the board's doing that's made.
It was the previous board. So, okay, that was a bad example.
Yes.
That was
So
a
that
terrible
shouldn't have
example.
even, that shouldn't have even, that would have, right there, would change their score, right?
But you don't have to have evaluation to know that it's
Then
already.
their score went up, right.
You just changed it tonight to go back to the staff to proactively take care of this.
And, okay,
I think the thing though about, if we are to do it, if the board does decide to do it 6 months, like a mid-year and an annual, I think it is important to do all of the categories, not just the ones where they were performing low on. Because you want, it shouldn't be a negative thing. Like, I feel like everyone's looking at this as something negative. Evaluations also point out positives. So why not embrace the positive too?
The lower ones that may be pulled up, there may be backslide on one they were previously. And if you're not gonna do it at 6 months and you're gonna wait a whole year, which then you're gonna have to report.
well, and then let me bring up another issue that I just remembered, was going through this. I remember dealing with this and going, I'm guessing on a lot of this.
I love mine.
It was like feelings. How do you evaluate it on a subjective, truly subjective basis? I mean, purely objective basis, and not subjectively, like you're just hearing rumor and innuendo. How do you make this an objective process?
I remember, yeah.
Can I add something?
I know, that's right, but you can't do that every 6 months.
No.
But how do we have the experience when all we're hearing is from angry residents?
I know. So remember, you each had a job somewhere in your career. You had an annual performance evaluation.
Hated.
Right. And that's the only time you got it annually. I don't recommend anything short.
I do want to add something here. In a healthy feedback environment, right, and we kind of touched on it, and that's why I want to talk about it for a minute. In a healthy feedback environment, we need to know immediately when we're not performing. It goes back to the annual evaluation. I'm an employee and I'm also an executive, right? So I'm on both sides. It is absolutely detrimental to any of my employees' performance if I wait until the end of the year to say, here are all the things you're not doing right. Totally
I always
detrimental.
thought that was a stupid idea.
Right?
And the
So-
more I think about this,
So my-
here's part of the problem, is that we ran on the angry resident ticket.
Sure. And we do that. I mean, we're open here. This is a partnership. So my ask is, in a healthy feedback environment, you're going to tell us when we're not performing immediately. So in a perfect world, and when we can do this every 6 months, and we better see an uptick in our performance. Because as our business partner, you're going to tell us immediately when we're not performing. Right? So my anticipation is that every 6 months is going to look better, because we're partnering properly together.
I'll give you an example of why we should
Can I,
do 6
can
months.
I add something? Sorry, can I add something here?
Sure.
Uh,
Charles.
Well, playgrounds were one that was
Yeah,
below.
so,
They were, if top line doesn't come through and that spring park doesn't get done, then we should all be given a ones for that specific aspect, right?
Okay,
So
let's
it's
hear from
appropriate
Charles.
For that time.
Charles?
all right, so I think we're projecting a lot. I think we're projecting a lot of resident feedback rather than the board feedback through what we're talking about right now. And we have to remember what we just did was a board exercise, right? And that's fair, right? We represent the residents, and that's totally valid. What I would argue is we need to think about the fact that, and I believe Grand Managers is doing this, we're implementing, I don't want to call it net promoter score, but net promoter score light almost, right? Where there is transactional survey for each experience that you've had with the front counter. Or I don't know if we're doing those little happy or sad things when you leave the amenities to check for the cleanliness. There are ways to pulse check these at transactional level, which then get feedback, which I think was where we're getting at in spirit. I think a lot of this is resident driven, right? I think the board feedback is one thing, right? The ship has sailed on that, and that's important. But we want to make sure we're ongoing capturing what the residents are saying. And I hear what Katie's saying, and I think that's maybe where we're trying to get at. So I guess I would argue maybe we need to think about.
And I have an idea, Charles, that might move this along because it's 25 minutes until 8. I do not want to let this go till 9. Why don't we table this and do this if down the road we think we need to?
It's available.
It's available to us if we want to do it. If 5 or 6 months from now, or 3 months or whatever, we go, we really need to reevaluate. We have a vote, we reevaluate. We don't codify it today.
That's fine. One final comment I'll make just on the overall score, if someone hasn't looked through it, but the lowest average scores were ARC applications, covenants, customer service types, and My Celebration FLF, playgrounds, and preventive maintenance. So that's two of the three is one of our main focuses of this board.
Yep.
So that's covered. The other ones, maybe some GoGov CCD thing that working through that I have meetings with them, so I'll personally work with Grand Managers to do that. Playground and preventive maintenance, I think we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
We're gonna work with them to improve
So
that.
to the My Celebration, they didn't answer to that. CDD, kind of like, so I can't blame them if there's any failures with that app.
Yeah,
Is it back?
Whatever it is.
they recommended a different solution, so, yeah. Yeah, I remember that. I wasn't on board with it. You guys are, that. Let's move on if we can. 851 building, and that's kind of where we are right now, sitting in not the 851 building. I even drove there and went, oh, no, we're not there anymore.
So after the rains this weekend, or this week, my office was wet again. As was the opposite corner in 104. So obviously, we all know there's constant water intrusion issues there. From an electrical perspective, we moved because additional staff members got shocked. When we go in and check the building, there's consistently frogs, snakes, and or lizards.
I have this in my house.
Yeah.
Stupid frog.
Obviously everybody knows there are no walls, there's no drywall, it's just the framing, and insulation that we replace regularly. The electrical is, all the sockets are impacted by, water intrusion because of the constant water intrusion from the exterior wall, both from the windows and from below. So basically that's where we're at.
So basically, it's sort of a moot point at this point.
Yes.
We're just gonna keep the building alive until we figure out what we're gonna do.
I will say I've had talks with the foundation and Lexi just approved in writing for us to put the front counter at the 690 building. But the foundation would like us to allow them to use the Island Village Amenity Center for lifelong. They are adopting 4 of our partner programs for free for us as well and providing us the front counter space for free. So I will make that recommendation.
And we can do that in a vote on the 26th.
Yes, we cannot move the front counter until we give them that in writing.
Do you need us to make that an emergency thing today?
It would be nice if you did.
Okay, so what's the deal with the event? Tell me give me the particular,
Yeah, so
give us the
the
particular.
structures of what you were thinking.
Yeah,
So they would be able to use the Island Village Amenity Center clubhouse for lifelong.
but aren't you putting offices in there?
We have people that are just mobile. They're coming in and using it as a landing spot with their laptop and then.
Okay, so there's no desks going in, it's just gonna stay as it is?
Yeah, because we have other partner programs out there using it already. Obviously you see the front desk. So these individuals would leave and go to the 690 building. Their manager would be out of the CCFC and be able to come over and spend time with them during the day, cover their lunches. And they've already taken Overeaters Anonymous, I think they're, well, the chorus went in there,
Into their conference room?
yeah, and two others, I can't remember specifically, and they're doing that all for free while we're still getting it.
All right, so basically we need a motion to,
Is that gonna limit the amount of rentals, at Island Village Community Center?
If their classes are in the day. Their classes during the day, during the week. Not your mom.
And who's gonna control the people that can get in there?
It would be our staff would do it. I mean, as it was previously, we set up the room in town hall and then in the so we're used to coordinating with them.
Do they have?
Are we charging the foundation?
Using?
are we what in the foundation?
No, we're
Are
not
are
charging.
we charging?
No,
Okay,
Is there a schedule already known of when they would be using it, or is it something where they could change after the fact?
No, they'll publish their schedule and work with Nikki on this. I don't know, Michael, they establish their schedule?
It's, I think it was in
Okay.
check it, it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah, they've already
That's
established their
mostly-
class. Well,
It's
during the
mostly
day.
during the day.
Yeah, it's during the day.
It's all-
It's their
Like
like
back to Island
So who's
plus
going?
it puts lifelong closure to our Artisan Village homeowners who live in 10, they drive over 10.
Well, no, they go inside the village.
That's what I said, I
Not
live.
you said artist.
Oh, I meant, I'm old.
I know.
So these ladies are going to the 690.
The three ladies going there?
So our front desk would be their front area?
Yeah.
That's
It's
great.
the original front.
The original front desk for town hall. Yes, sir.
Yes, Steve North at 1130 Patrick Drive. What's the timeline for making a decision on the E51 building? In 2 years?
We're discussing this a little bit later.
Yep.
Let's say,
It's, we're pushing it forward as fast as we can. We gotta bring somebody in to make a determination as to whether it's worth fixing or tear it down.
Where's the insurance company?
There was never, can I say it again, Ron, please? There was never an insurance claim made. Never, ever. So if you see it on any fortune, somebody saying,
I don't look at.
no, I'm just saying, there was never an insurance claim made.
Can't determine when the damage actually occurred.
Was that your decision?
No, sir. That was the board's decision.
The insurance company should make a decision, shouldn't be on the insurance. Why would we not?
I'm sorry.
Means insurance companies, if we're paying insurance, we should be able to,
What's the deal on insurance?
We reached out to their broker
And
and they said, there's no point here because of the previous damage of levels.
so it didn't go to our insurance company,
No, it went to.
our insurance agent.
Agent.
All right.
You never put in a claim. How wrong?
typically go to an adjuster, independent adjuster, or something to make an independent decision whether you're insurance. You gotta go through those steps.
Well, when did the damage start? Do we know roughly?
What I was told by employees that stayed from CCNC for a while is that water intrusion had been happening for years every time it rained.
Which would mean that it's,
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, if an insurance claim is made, the insurance company and if people are on places, so they can't say what was truly a hurricane that started it and all the damage after that. So
Yeah,
during the
that's for the
history of-
magnitude of costs, you're actually having done as a professional decision, right?
it would be nice if we could go back in time and fix it, but it's a 5-year statute.
I think also.
So there's a 5-year statute on claims. So we know the damage occurred more than 5 years ago.
Significant activity occurred after the storm was less than 2 years ago.
No, but we know from others who were working at it, that they had water intrusion from before 5 years ago. And therefore, if we went to the insurance company and said, this damage occurred only in the last 2 years, we would be committing insurance fraud. If we knew that it occurred before.
I said, so in the totality, how do you get a totality? You took the water intrusions one corner of the building. You're making a decision based after a storm, you had a hurricane.
What,
There was a
though, I think, that we did, was it like the feasibility study, started July 2022, right before the hurricane, it happened like in July, and then a hurricane came afterwards, so that a lot of this is documented in that report.
You're absolutely correct. It's all in there.
So I think that may have been some of that hesitancy, saying like, okay, this report exists, showing that you had these problems, and then a hurricane comes after, and it's
And
obviously.
Florida statute does not allow you to go more than 1 year on an insurance.
Didn't we look at self-insuring?
What?
Didn't we look at self-insuring 851 at one point in time?
No.
Your self-insuring items under 20,000.
We talked about
Maybe
the deductible.
Yeah, we did that and we self-insured everything to 5,000.
Okay.
In other words, yeah, I mean, this board is moving faster than previous ones and trying to get something to happen. That's why we have the task force, the master plan task force, to help us also determine what the needs are. But we are looking at bids right now from 2 different companies to come in soon and tell us what has to be done to this building and is it even salvageable.
I guess a couple points on that is the Master Plan Advisory Group has a report coming out in August for us. CCAC, that's the exciting process to have at the end of the year. Talk about what we want to do as far as we do. So,
Before we do that, do we have to do anything about what we're up with the foundation?
Yeah, we do. We need to vote on that. We need a motion to approve, moving the front desk staff to the foundation to 690, and allowing the foundation to use the Island Village Clubhouse on the schedule presented Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for lifelong learning. No money to change hands, just a.
yeah, so I guess can we approve that and iron out the details on what's using, but so they'll come back saying going from 9 to 9, something like that.
Okay, so Don made a motion. I second.
All those in favor? Aye.
So Lexington is going along with this.
They signed up.
I think, you know how people feel, I think we got a little maybe baby steps in a partnership.
That's a baby step.
It's baby steps, but it's baby steps. We have the foundation, Lexington, and CROA.
Well, and we are going to be looking at longer term options.
Yeah.
She's working on longer term
We have
options.
longer term options. I'm just waiting on some finalized numbers. There's some at the Boulevard, there's that place called Arisushi. If you wanted a shorter term lease option, there's also the executive suites on the 3rd floor of the Bank of America building that can be leased out in 6-month terms, so that gives you a little bit more flexibility and still.
You're going to present those to us.
Yeah, as soon as I get all.
Let's say probably July workshop.
But I think it's a good thing that all three things came together and made everything work. Everybody's sharing what they have available.
I think on behalf of the board and Celebration Foundation, thank you for your partnership.
Yeah.
Just one time we're going through right now and finding a place for grant members.
Let's move on to appointment of members to the service area committees. What do we have to do there?
That's just on everything to be in it.
It's going to be an action item. Okay, we're going to talk about that at the meeting. Liaison appointments, that'll be an action item? That'll be an action item.
We're not picking tonight?
No. Pool restroom revamp.
It's gonna be an action item.
It's going to be faster now. Pressure washing CROA, action item. I know that. I saw it. Owner's representative vendor for 851. That's the big action item. Should we discuss that one tonight a little? Yeah.
Can I just make a recommendation on that? So for this bid, Mark Peturo from Master Plan Advisory Group gave us a recommendation to go with Calic Group, and he gave us several reasons why. I can go over it if you'd like. But the main, I'll just say.
Calic was very good.
The main thing is they have experience with the exterior envelope inspections. They do the same exterior construction. And they also have a lot of practice building envelope work. So with our particular building, they have a lot of experience with that. The full bid was included, however, I think we could probably narrow it down into doing like different phases. So we could do one phase and just approve mainly like the programming and the schematic design. And then that should give us like an early on idea of whether or not the building is salvageable. We could get a report after just breaking down some of those things. So like, if you look.
Yeah, because you're right, we don't need the interior design done
Right.
yet, we don't need the furniture and art done yet, we don't need the mechanical, fire, electrical done yet. It's that first section.
Yes, so like if you look at like, for the first section, architecture and design, and do like 1, 2, and 3. Interior 1 and 2, plumbing 1 and 2, low voltage 1 and 2, structural 1 and 2, civil 1 and 2. That comes out to be about the third of the price of the total bid that is included.
Do you think they would be amenable to that as opposed to the whole $300,000 bid?
Did we?
He said, yeah, he said for a lot cheaper on the friendly.
But they never did the A15.
That was CERTA and, reconstruction experts.
So why can't we go back to reconstruction, whoever they were?
CERTA. This, you need
Is
it
it
all.
better?
Yeah.
This is like encompasses everything. And then so like hypothetically.
Yeah, that 300 gets us done.
You want a piecemeal.
Hypothetically, if we get these numbers back in like the preliminary, it's like we'll get a drawing, a narrative package, and an estimate for the cost range. We'll get all that information with this first phase. And if it sounds like this is something that, makes sense, like this is kind of like doing our due diligence. If it sounds like it makes sense, then we continue on with the process. So it's.
My only comment to that would be, if it's because we are going to have to either fix that building or, you're wrong, never mind, I take back my objection, you're right. I love that idea. You love that idea?
Yeah, there's a lot of fluff in there that I think we can put on.
For now.
And what is our objective? Right? I think our objective is to say,
To figure out
is
what we're
this
gonna do.
building beyond repair or can be repaired? And the cheapest we can get to that decision, the better.
It's $100,000 accessory.
So, yeah.
What do you think?
84 did better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you need that information, there's.
First and ask. So I think we vote on that on 2 weeks.
Well, what was the biggest issue with that building? Water. I gotta try to explain it to you. That's the water that comes, not from the windows, not from the roof,
Foundation.
from, it comes up.
I mean, there's a gap between the foundation and the bottom of the building, and in many instances, it's.
And that's, these guys are gonna look at that and how to either fix that or rebuild the building.
And they came on site and walked the building for well over an hour.
So
Mark said-
is this a, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Charles.
Is this a CJC expense or CROA for the study?
The CROA expense, Canoa reimburses you $25,000 a year.
You hear that?
Yep, okay.
CROA. Because CROA owns the building. CJC does not.
Yeah,
own the building.
yeah, but but the
They kind of
offices-
rinsed it from us.
Yeah,
So,
I guess that's,
CJC only owns the water tower. CROA owns town hall, and Canoa reimburses you $25,000 a year for the CJC staff that support Canoa to sit in.
All right, so that.
Can I ask one question?
got it.
On that, it's empty, Did we clean out the gutter?
I asked Brian.
Oh my God, yes,
Get
the
rid of
gutter.
the dead plants in the front.
That makes us look so bad.
I asked Brian.
Those dead plants that are under your old office,
Jose says
taking
that's-
them out?
He says that's drought and it'll bounce back. But I can have him just replace it.
No, if they bounce back, my yard has just bounced back in like a day. It's like, look at it. St. Augustine is magical. Everything else is an action item that's pretty straightforward.
On that K, you breakdown, you got that from Mark, or that was from the computer?
This is what Mark's recommendation was, these specific ones to start off.
Strictly his project.
And then I did the math on it, it was 84,400.
So are we comfortable having that handed over to Mark?
Yep, and talk to Calic and see if they're
The
amenable.
specific items of this
Yep.
is what we want,
Yep.
will this be?
Yeah, with the understanding that then we do the rest of that because they've already put all that work in, that if we're rebuilding it, they're our owner.
But I think they're
They're off the friggin' church wall.
I'd rather not have a contingency, but.
I gotta tell you, if we had 16 bids and they were all better than Calic's, based on Calic's experience from everything I've read, Calic is off the charts.
Oh, no, I have an issue with their quality, just that we're not putting out anything more than we have to.
I agree. And that's why I love Katie's idea and Mark's idea of doing a third now. Because if we're gonna tear it down, put a parking lot there, then we're only at 81,000.
Right, no, that's what I wanted to do.
Wait, you want to put a parking lot there?
No, that.
No, he wants
we spend
84.
84,000, but there's nothing that we need to continue to hang on or pay,
Yeah. So I have a question on the liaison. Are there any meetings coming up that are gonna not have a liaison?
I think those that are resigning have posted they would continue to go to the meetings until they were reappointed. Or find a replacement.
I would consider a motion to adjourn then.
one question.
I would not consider that. She has a question.
Because we're gonna be voting on the gazebo. The difference in the bids,
It's shocking.
yeah, is there any reason why in the three?
So the reason we're recommending Darbo Design Build is in walking with them, they fully understand the way those gazebos are constructed and you need a full crane lift up of it because it's just not in. And then to take that down and establish it. The other ones we're trying to do a piecemeal fix or protected lipstick on pig, despite us telling them that they needed to do this.
So they were lowballing it to get the bid.
Yeah,
you have a replacement versus repair.
yes. Well, I mean, it's not a full replacement, but it's a true repair, so it's done correctly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'll look for a motion to adjourn. Anyway,
I'll make
I'll second.
we're gone, guys. Thank you